Hi, everyone. This is Dee. Welcome back to the Eternal Evolution of Self podcast. I have another beautiful guest with me today. This is Beccy. Hi, Beccy. Thanks for being with me here today. I appreciate your time.
Hi Dee, I am so happy to have the opportunity to chat with you today.
I'm so happy to have you here. And for those of you who don't know, and I just got informed, it's really early where Beccy is this morning. So I'm super grateful for her having an early rise to come in and talk to us today. So tell us what you do, Beccy.
Okay, so I'm a counselor and I am a women's health and lifestyle coach, and my particular area of interest or passion is supporting women transition into and thrive in the second half of their lives.
That's
I
awesome.
think that Yeah, I just think that with support, that transition, and that time of life can be so incredibly spectacular. Unfortunately, that's not necessarily the way, that, the second half of women's life is perceived oftentimes, and
Mhm.
I'm so passionate about, raising the awareness of the fact that that can be such an incredibly powerful time in a woman's life, and a time to be celebrated, and really lent into with all of that incredible, crone energy. I'm just so passionate about that, Deek, and that's why I absolutely love supporting women. You know, just make sure that, with sort of, looking at their wellness and their mindset, and meaning it in that, and the meaning they make of being a woman in the second half of her life, is key to ensuring, or making the experience and time just, the very best possible.
Yeah, because I think so many women think of it as like the end of their youth and what do they do with the rest of their lives? It's kind of like the end they perceive, especially women who really love being mothers and their children leave home. So now they're empty nesters and then maybe their husband or partner retires and now they find themselves with all this time with their partner. And that can very oftentimes be a very awkward situation for some people, unfortunately.
Mhm.
So, are those two areas that you find that are really especially troublesome for women entering the second half?
Absolutely, all of that. It's a time when relationships, with significant others can really be tested, and it's also n- n- quite common that they end. Doesn't always happen, of course,
Right.
but it's often a time where, women might find themselves navigating, perhaps even the end of a long-term relationship. That is quite common. It doesn't, obviously, there's many more that doesn't happen to, but nonetheless, the relationship changes in whatever way, and shifts and changes. So finding that kind of, it's forging a new identity, really, to some extent. Who am I now that my children are grown and don't need me? That I no longer have got all. It's a time where life seems to stretch out in terms of space. There's a lot of space when, all of the things that have occupied you, perhaps, in that busy season of motherhood. And it might not even be that you might not even have children, but it's often a time in that, first half of our lives where we are nurturing and caring and creating, in the home and in our career, oftentimes as well. And that changes as we sort of move into that second half. So yes, certainly personal relationships. Often we're also, where we can be sort of, dealing with loss as well, Dee. Loss of that perception of youth and significance, even, that can be a real I can't, with menopause, I can't have babies anymore. What does that mean? Who am I if I'm not a mum? All of those identity questions come up significantly. Yeah, so that's definitely all of the stuff that I love to support women with for sure.
Mhm. Yeah. Do you find that women
Mm.
tend to think, 'cause I know it's a common, especially here in America, that once you reach a certain age, you're kind of dispensable, that your life doesn't have as much worth as it used to, and you're too old to do certain things. So how do you help
Yeah, yeah.
women navigate that kind of mindset?
Well, I think it's about really digging into the mindset deeply and the stories that they may not even be aware that they are carrying within themselves about what being an older woman in our society, in a society that unfortunately does place this incredibly high value on youth and beauty over, wisdom and experience. And of
Right.
course, not to say that, in our mature years, we don't have this incredible kind of other beauty, but it's not, unfortunately, what is seen because, once we get that sort of 45, 50, we become invisible, or we feel that we become invisible because women are not widely represented or visible in our Western society. So yeah, definitely just uncovering those stories, and once once women become aware of some of the subconscious stories that they are carrying with them, then we can start to tweak and change them, and really, sort of really lean into and create some narrative that is going to be so much more nourishing and supportive to them, and
Mhm.
really let them feel that the incredible power that can come with rewriting that kind of narrative for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can attest to that as being a woman who is in the second half of her life. How I have just completely changed everything. I don't have the
Yeah.
same career as I used to. I'm actually just getting started for real, almost at the very beginning, it feels like in a lot of ways. And it's absolutely incredible. I mean, it's absolutely incredible. And I have just
Yeah.
embraced it with such gusto, and I'm so much happier. Like it's
Mm,
just a whole different kind of happy than it just feels different. Not that happy isn't happy, but it has a whole different energy to it. So it's really
yeah.
beautiful. So I'm glad that you support women through this part of
Yes.
their lives and help them get to the place where they can embrace the fact that it's not over. It's just really getting started. The fun just now begins.
It's just the beginning. Yeah, absolutely. And I think once you are able, and I think, well, like, because I've got three pillars of my kind of support, and it's wellness, mindset, and meaning. And I think once you get, get the wellness component under control. So if they're experiencing any kind of troublesome symptoms, we need to make sure that they are feeling physically well before we can sort of start to look at that mindset piece,
Mhm.
and then even deeper into the meaning. Well, what in this your second half of life can you bring all of your experiences of your life so far, and look at what brings you a feeling of fulfillment and meaning, because we do, um, our purpose changes,
It
and that's
does.
okay. And I think people, you know, often might have an idea that when you find your life purpose, that's one and done. You have
Mm.
one, and that's just simply not doesn't serve anyone to feel that locked in or rigid, because we evolve and we change and we pivot.
Yeah. Yeah, we
Mm,
definitely do. And it's a beautiful thing. And not to be
yeah,
afraid of that. I think that's a big thing, that it's the unknown. And you said, we have our purpose changes, but don't you feel like a lot of times in the first part of our lives, we're not actually in our purpose, we're just in a career
yeah,
because it's the
yeah,
safe
yeah.
thing to do?
the safe thing, the thing we always thought we would do. So oftentimes it can often even just be like a default. We just end up somewhere without necessarily giving it that kind of deep thought or examination. Like, we often just land somewhere for just a series of circumstances rather than necessarily by design and on purpose, in purpose. So yes, absolutely. I think that the idea of life purpose probably is more common to come up and be explored or um, examined, a bit later. Oftentimes, perhaps when you're feeling like something's off in your life, and then we sort of start to think about what is it actually that doesn't feel right for me, what's not serving me, and that can be when some really big changes actually happen.
Yes. Yes. And
Mm.
there can be some mourning of the letting go of those things that are no longer serving you. Could you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, of course. There are. I mean, life is I should say, loss is part of life. Loss and grief is, it's intertwined in all of the joy and wonder and magic of life. There are losses, and again in our society, sadness and grief and loss is something that is perceived as to be avoided or a bad thing or a terrible thing even, and in fact it's actually just part of life, and we all will go through it, and it sometimes it's painful, or oftentimes it's painful. Loss can be really painful, but it can also be very freeing
Mm.
and just something that needs to happen to get us into the right space or place. But there's no doubt that there are losses that come along, as I said, with change. Any change is going to bring some loss, and if there's anything that's a constant in life, it's change. And
Yes.
Um, I think that part of the important work of coaches is to support clients in navigating transition and change and even designing it. So actually stepping up and taking the reins a little bit, because s- one of the very challenging things that people often find with change is that it can feel like it's happening to them
Mhm.
rather than for them.
Right.
And I think that, sometimes it's that feeling of being out of control that
Mhm.
can be so terrifying. For us as humans, it's natural to want to feel that we have some control in our life, and when through whatever circumstance feels like it's not there, then that can be really, really incredibly scary.
Mhm. And in my own life, I
Yeah.
have found that resisting the pain and not allowing, trying not to allow myself to feel it because we really can't keep ourselves from it, but just leaning into it and allowing myself just to have that moment or even that day sometimes just to feel all the feelings and let them come and wash over me
Mm.
and realizing that that's okay. It, and
Yeah.
like you said, a lot of times we perceive it as a bad thing or a negative thing or something to be avoided. But I feel like that's very helpful just to lean into it and allow those feelings to come so that they kind of purge themselves out of your system and then you can move on to the next beautiful thing.
Yeah, I love that, Dee. That is so, so true, that leaning into and allowing a space to feel all of the feelings is how we can then move through them. But if we resist, which again, oftentimes that can be our first instinct is to push or resist. But what we know is that what we resist will persist,
Yes.
and it'll catch us out somewhere. It'll catch us somehow, somewhere. So really, allowing yourself that grace and space to feel all of those feelings is absolutely the way to go. It's,
Yeah.
it's so key.
Yes. And sometimes letting go of things means moving on from certain friendships too. And I know I've had this experience in my own life, but I also have found out through the course of these experiences that sometimes those things need to happen so that we can move forward, that somehow that friendship, even though those are wonderful people, has stagnated us. And so they
Yeah.
have to kind of fall away so that we can move forward. Have you found that with some of your clients?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the way, that's the natural way of thing, you know. Some friendships are, for a season, a season, a particular season in our lives, and sometimes we can outgrow them, and it's not again, it's a natural, that's the way it's supposed to happen. Not supposed to is not the right word, but it's natural, I think. Yes. But it can feel a little bit confronting and challenging when we find that, and it's like, "Oh, what does this mean about me?" Am
Right.
I suddenly whatever, whatever it
Yes.
might be, whatever the story that pops up is like, am I doing something wrong? Why does it feel like we're just no longer quite aligned? But it's again, it's that part of natural evolution of yourself. Yeah, yeah.
It is. It's
Mm.
and it's very powerful. I have grown to enjoy watching it happen, but that didn't happen at the very beginning. In the very beginning, when the friendships started falling away, I was right in that place where you talked about, like, what is it with me? Like, what am I doing something wrong? And do I need to be better in this way or that way? And we
Yeah,
very much make things about ourselves sometimes when it's
we
really
do.
more
Yes.
about our spiritual energetic evolution as we
Yeah, yeah.
grow and learn about ourselves and
Mm.
about life, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. You've put that so well, for sure. That's exactly what it's about. Yeah, yeah. And it also creates space for new connections, and that's the other thing. That can feel a little challenging as we, making friends isn't necessarily what we think we're going to be doing in our 50s or 60s. But it again, there's no reason why not. And in fact, that can also be incredibly, something incredibly rewarding is
Mhm.
forming some new connections that are more aligned to what your interests and passions are now.
Right, right. So how
Mhm.
do you encourage women to do that? How do you get them to find new friends? Do they need to start going different places, or how does that work for?
That's pretty much it. I mean, obviously, we can have all of our online connections, which can be, we can have some incredibly powerful community online. But I think when we're talking like friends and social connections, that it's important to have sort of real life ones as well.
Yes.
So yeah, going to different places. And again, if you're someone who finds themselves, and this, I have quite a few clients in this scenario, and in fact that was my story as well, finding themselves suddenly single
Mhm.
at their in their late 40s or early 50s. That can be quite daunting, and that's a whole new, that's a whole new set of challenges. And yeah, so really encouraging and supporting women to, yeah, get out of their comfort zone and go places with girlfriends, or and then it's exciting, but it's also scary. It's scary. That's I think that's, I mean, fear or nerves and excitement are sort of the two sides of the one coin anyway,
Yes.
often. So yeah, just really trying to lean in into the positive side of the excitement of possibilities
Mhm.
rather than the other side.
Right. Absolutely. I had that, I got divorced when I was, gosh, like it was a long time ago. But I'd been married for 20 years, right? I'd been married for
Yeah,
20 years.
yeah,
So that was a long time. I spent basically all of my adult life,
with one
growing up
largely.
in that
Yeah,
marriage. And so when I got divorced, I didn't
yeah,
have a clue who I was outside of that relationship. So that was very
exactly.
interesting to have that experience. But one thing that I did learn, and I feel like this is really, really important. It was for me to not feel like you have to explain yourself, to defend
Mm,
yourself against what other people are saying, especially in a situation of divorce, because there's always, it seems like, his team and her team, you know what I mean, as far as friends go and
mm,
those kind of relationships. And that's one of the things I was learning to live my life as a single woman and figure out
yeah,
who I was as a person outside of that
yeah,
relationship
yeah,
that I had really grown up in as an adult,
yeah,
and listening to the things that people said and the rumors flying around. And how do you navigate that? Well, my personal thing was to not explain myself, because I feel like people are going to believe whatever they're going to believe anyway, even if I do explain myself. So I'm just going to let you have that story, whatever story you make that into. Because
yeah,
I know my
yeah,
truth, you know? So
yeah.
how do you
Yeah.
encourage women to navigate that situation?
I think that what you've said there is really, really powerful. Not getting caught up in that kind, the dynamics, and again, you've got that loss that goes with that. Even if it was a very, very positive thing for you that the end of that marriage happened, there is still always going to be loss that goes along with that ending, because as you said, that was such a huge. And I mean, I had exactly the same experience, Dee. So such a huge part of your life that's suddenly not there, and then you've got all of this space and the stories and the friendships that will fall away because they were kind of more his friends or whatever. And in terms of those stories and not explaining yourself, I think that kind of piece of other people's um opinions are their own business, they're not mine.
Right.
um, you know, they will believe what they want to believe. It's not my role to be convincing them of my worth, of my story, of my anything. That if they're, yeah, if they're going to be in my life, then they need to be in my life for me, and I'm enough for them without doing that explaining or that people pleasing. And I think again, when we do grow up in a a marriage, like, people pleasing is such a huge part of so many women's DNA. And I think, and what I love supporting and celebrating with clients is stepping into that space of no, no more. We're not doing that anymore. I am going to do what pleases me, and what everyone else thinks is none of my business, none of my concern. And I personally think that is probably one of the key things that I love about the power of being a woman in the second half of life, is releasing that need to please, that need to explain, that whole feeling tied down and restricted by concern about what other people think of us. And
Right.
this is just, I just love, love, love the freedom that comes with releasing ourselves from that concern.
Yeah. Oh, I do too. It's amazing. And you can feel that in your whole entire being when that happens. It's amazing. And one of the things I realized too is that goes along with that is when you are a people pleaser, the bar is never in the same place twice. You know, today they're
Mm.
going to expect this thing, but and you're going to get there, you think, and then the next time it's going to be something different. It's all over the place. So really, at the end
Yes.
of the day, you really just need to make yourself happy.
Absolutely. Yes, yeah. And I think that that's something that, I wish there was a class in school that talked about this stuff. Like, wouldn't that be really helpful?
It would be, but would we listen
But
at that point? Would we really
no,
hear
probably
what was being said? I don't, you know, my
probably not.
my daddy's
No.
granny used to tell him, but with your own head, Donnie, but with your own head, because you try to teach people things so that they don't have to go through what you went through. But sometimes the only way for them to actually get that lesson is for them to go through it themselves.
That is very true, and you're right, it probably wouldn't work, but it's a nice thought.
It is a nice
But you're
thought.
right, I mean, you do have to get to that point where you choose that freedom for yourself, and it's usually born out of, some incredibly painful learnings.
Mm. It is.
Mm.
Unfortunately, us humans are pretty stubborn. So we have to have those lessons that kind of hit us square on
Yeah.
top of the head before we pay attention to them. One of the
Yeah,
things
that
that you
is so
said in
true.
the beginning that I'd like to have you go back to for a second is the crone energy. I don't know if a lot of people
Yeah.
really know what that means. So can you explain that a little bit?
Well, yeah, it's the so we have like seasons in our life. So we start with sort of maiden, for our up until puberty, and then so that maiden energy, mother energy, marga, or crone. So it's that kind of, that older woman, the woman who is, so incredibly, and in our society, that crone energy is not revered or respected or celebrated in the way it is in so many indigenous cultures. And
Mm,
what I find fascinating about that is that in the cultures where that energy is celebrated and in fact, really held up, and revered as that wise woman, uh, those communities and societies do not experience anywhere near the distress in terms of that menopause transition as
mhm.
we do in our Western world. And I just find that so fascinating, and the connection there, it can't be coincidence, I
No, I
don't
don't
think.
believe in coincidences anyway, but I agree with you. I think it's like, we really actually kind of lose our worth in the eyes of society as we get older, especially as women. We're not even supposed
Mm,
to have our natural hair color. We're supposed to, have
mm.
Botox treatments, and I'm not, you know, belittling
Yeah, no,
anyone
no
who
shade to
chooses that
anyone who
route,
wants
but
to
if
do
that's what
that.
you want to do, but society dictates these are the steps you take so that you maintain your youthful appearance. You have your hair that's done. I mean, like I'm letting mine grow out. You can see it's like my blonde is slowly
Yeah,
going
yeah.
away. And because I
Yeah,
one day,
yeah.
and it's not for everyone. I get that. And that's okay. If you want to keep dyeing your hair, keep dyeing your hair. You're
Yeah,
beautiful,
absolutely.
but I'm beautiful too. Just because I have embraced my gray and my natural color doesn't mean that I'm not beautiful anymore either. So I think that just recognizing that we can have all kinds of beauty at any age
Yes,
and we don't lose our
absolutely.
worth as we get older. Like I love old people. Older people are like some of my favorite people. My grandma's 96 and I love talking to her. She has the best stories and
Yeah.
I call her spicy. She's very sassy and spicy and I just I love that. And I think we
Oh,
should
yeah.
revere our older people and it's not just the women. It's the men too, like once people reach a certain age in this society, they become dispensable. And
Absolutely, and invisible, and no
yes,
one talks about them. We don't see them on telly shows or anything, and it's so shallow and so sad that we are not seeing and hearing and having that experience of all of the treasures that their life experience can bring and be shared with us. We're losing that opportunity. We're choosing not to have that opportunity, and I think that's just so shallow and scare and sad,
it
for
is.
society.
I think we're trending away from that a little bit finally. It's a slow process, but I've been seeing more people, especially women, who are in, a space where they're could be described as influencers or whatever, where they have a
Yeah,
powerful online presence
yeah,
and things like that, and they're embracing their natural beauty and their age and they're putting themselves out there in a way that, hey, I may be this age and I may have gray hair, but I'm still beautiful and I still have presence and I still have value and I'm going to share that with
and
you. So I think
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
it's a slow trend, but it's there, and I feel like we should recognize that and embrace it and
And
share it by all means,
celebrate
you
it.
know?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah,
Celebrate it.
absolutely.
That's
I
the perfect
agree.
word.
I think that, I mean, I'm conscious that we follow particular, and Instagram being a prime example will throw us up and feed us, things that personalities and pages and etc. that it thinks we're interested in. So I think that we see more of that because that's um, we've indicated to the algorithm or whatever that that's what we want to see. We want to see more of that. So I think, having said that, I still believe and firmly hope that what you're saying is correct because I'm seeing it as well. And that's why I love coming on podcasts and talking about it, for example, because I think that, our voices are to be used. And I just love having the opportunity to come on and talk about this kind of thing,
Mhm.
because the more we talk about it, the more people stop, and hopefully that change, it leads to that changing perspective slowly, as you say. But slowly is better than none at all.
Yes, yes. Forward movement of any kind is still forward movement. So, and that's one of the things as you're talking to your clients about the second half of their life, the baby steps,
Yeah,
and it depends,
always.
like we use that term baby steps, and I've thought about this, and don't you feel like it's relative? Because what feels like a baby step today may be a giant step for you tomorrow. It could just like your energy just isn't there. So that could be a really, really big step for you tomorrow. So don't you
Yes.
think that yeah,
It's so true, so true, and it's about having that awareness and understanding and grace. Like I'm completely in love with the whole concept of giving ourselves grace, because we're always going to do the very best we can at that in that time, with what we have, with the
mhm,
resources we have and the energy we have and all of the rest of it. And so holding ourselves, up to, some it's always about checking in on the expectations that we're having, and really asking ourselves, am I giving myself enough grace here?
yeah, being kind to
Mm,
ourselves, self-love, that's like a huge thing. It really is because
yeah,
it really is at the heart of everything. If we truly love ourselves and give ourselves the care that we need, then it just spills over into the
it
rest of
does.
every single thing we do, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It so does. And someone who really has that deep self-love and appreciation for themselves, is then able, because their cup is going to be full with
Mm.
that self-love, which then means they have so much more to give to others, and that giving comes from that really empowered and powerful, place, of service. And when our own cup is full, we are just so much more able to be there in any capacity for everyone else,
Yes.
if that's what we choose. If that's what we choose, yeah.
Yeah, we do. And don't you think you said if that's what we choose, but don't you feel like once we get to that place, we kind of organically want to share that with other people?
I, I think so. Yeah, I believe that to be true. I think again it comes back to, um, how closely the act of service is with the feeling of connection
Mm.
with others, and we all have something to offer, all.
Yes.
And it's about understanding that and knowing that it everyone is different, and what everyone brings to the table, so to speak, is unique and incredibly precious.
Yeah, it is. Gosh, that was so well said. I love that. It is. It absolutely is. And one of the things that I noticed about myself is as I've gotten older is I compliment people.
Yeah.
way more than I ever did when I was younger.
Yeah.
You know, like I'll see someone in a store and it can even be, you know, a young man or, you know, an older woman, or I'm very mindful of complimenting men just because some men take kindness as flirtation and that's not always the case. So I'm mindful of
Yeah.
that piece of it. But I compliment, you know, I'll see a woman and I'll be like, "Oh my gosh, you look so beautiful today," or whatever. And realizing that that takes nothing away from me. And the looks
Ah,
on their
love
faces
this.
sometimes, you know,
Love this so much. Yeah.
it's like,
I
wow,
love this so much.
when was the last time you got a compliment? That's what I want to ask. I even remember one time I
Mm.
complimented a lady on Facebook. I don't know her, but I complimented her. And she goes, "That is the first compliment I have ever received from another woman."
Oh my goodness.
I know. And I was blown
Oh my
away by
goodness.
her
That's
saying that.
blown away. That's like, that's crazy. I love that, because complimenting is so, it's just such a two-way reward because it makes us, and I do the same thing. I love going up to say to people, "Oh my goodness, I love that the earrings," or whatever it might be. And it makes us both feel good. But
Yes.
I think, you know what I think, I think that we we start feeling confident in doing that when we I think it comes down again, I think it comes down to that confidence that we have in ourselves as someone who is worthy to give another person a compliment. Like our voice and opinion matters. I
Right.
think I think that's something there. I do think there's something there. But I know I had someone in the supermarket yesterday say, "Oh, I've just been looking at your sandals. They're lovely." And I'm like, "Oh, thank you." So it is so nice, and I do it myself often. If I see something that I like, I will make sure that I tell someone. I'm just trying to think though. It's interesting what you say about men because I don't think I do it to men.
Hmm.
And I would not have ever really even thought about that until you just said it then, and I'm like, I know I'm really comfortable and confident going up and telling a woman that I like her earrings or her dress or that color's beautiful or where did you get those pants? They're gorgeous. They suit you so much. But I wouldn't, I just, yeah, I wouldn't to a man and I don't know. It's an interesting food. I'll have to have a bit of a think about that.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I do with very young men, like men that are like, because I'm 54 now, so I'll do it with men who are like
Yeah.
very young, like 20 or
Yeah.
under, or right around that 20-year
Yeah.
mark
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
something,
So
because they're
kind of
not looking at me as like scheming to get them, you know, to go out with me or whatever. They're just like, "Oh, here's an older
yeah.
lady.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's
Yeah.
like my mom or whatever, telling me that I'm whatever,"
Correct.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm more
Yeah.
comfortable
Yeah. Yeah.
doing that. Every once in a while, I will like I'll see an older man and I'll come, and I'm not big into colognes and stuff like that, but occasionally I'll pass an older man who has a really nice cologne on and I'll compliment him on his cologne or a
Oh, yeah.
nice beard or something like that, you know, not really just
Okay.
saying,
Yep.
"You're so handsome," you
Yeah.
know, that one I save for my man.
Yeah, yeah, fair enough too. Absolutely. Yeah. No, that's a really interesting. I never actually thought about that. On yeah, I like when the things pop up and you're like, oh, I'll have to have a think about that.
Yeah,
So thank
yeah.
you.
You're welcome. It's fun to learn and grow, isn't it? It's like my favorite
Yeah.
thing in the whole universe. I love learning and growing and different
Yes, me
aspects. That's
too.
one of the things I love about this podcast because I talk to so many different people and everyone has a different perspective. Some of my guests have been like you from different countries. So there's that uh, geographical difference in perspective because it's a different, you know, a lot of times a different
Yeah.
culture. Even though
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
very similar, it's not the same. So there's a different
Not the
perspective
same.
there. So I love it. I love it. I think
Yeah.
insight is great.
Yes, and curiosity is such an incredibly powerful tool, and I think that, it's an absolute blessing. I think when you're able to keep hold of that curiosity, that sense of curiosity, then you're always going to be okay. Because
Yes.
I just think curiosity is such a gift.
Yes.
And again, it's that lifelong learning. Like I'm always studying, always, because I love learning too. I'm exactly the same, and I believe that that is what keeps us young and motivated and engaged. Is that curiosity that I honestly think of that sense of curiosity as such a precious thing.
I agree with you 100%. It's so much fun. Like it really is. And it kind of erases the can't. I grew up hearing
Yeah.
my dad say can't never could do nothing, anyway. So, but you don't always you don't always allow yourself to believe that. But if you think about it and you find yourself saying you can't and follow it, but what if? What if I could? Remember when we said what if all the time when we were kids? But what if I could?
Yep.
What if it really could
Yep.
be different? What would that look what if
Yes.
one of the things when I before I got out of my last really toxic relationship, I found myself going, what if I could get up in the morning and have coffee and not be screamed at
Yeah.
before I took my first sip?
Yeah.
What would that be like? You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I think
Yeah.
just
And so it's
but
always
that's that curiosity.
yes, and it's always creating that space of possibility, which
Yes.
again is so exciting.
Yeah,
Possibilities are exciting.
they are. So
Even
that
when even when yeah, when you don't necessarily have to know the how to, you
yes,
don't need to know that how to right now, but the curiosity will get you there at some point
it
because 'cause you'll
will.
keep asking those yeah,
Right. And we don't
yeah,
have to know everything. That's the thing. I think well, I don't know how to do that. Well, I'm 50 and I've never done that before. Well, that's true of every single thing we've ever done. We never
correct.
breathed air until we came out of the womb and we took our first breath.
That's it.
We didn't know how
That's
to do
right.
that. We've never done that before, right? Then we had to learn
Yeah,
how to crawl and walk and eat solid food and all of the things. So it's not, you may not know how to do it, but you can learn. And I
yep,
think
always, always.
we put so much pressure on ourselves, I think, to be able to be a specialist at something before we ever even pick it up for the first time. We get to
That's
learn
true.
and it's okay. We're going to make a
Yeah,
few messes and drop an egg or two every now and then, but it's okay.
yeah, 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 and I think that's where, having that grace is so supportive. Mm,
Yes. And finding
mm.
just allowing ourselves to make the mess. Like
Yeah,
for instance, things spill sometimes, and that's just the way it is. Like we went to bed the other night, and I had put Steve's glass of water. We always have our water on our nightstands beside the bed, and I had put his. Well, he turned the light off before he moved it into his normal spot, and then he went to
yeah,
do something, and hear this crash, and the lid came off the water cup, and water was everywhere. And instead of getting upset about it, I started laughing because I'm like, well, at least it's not sticky. It's water, right? So I think sometimes
yes,
giving ourselves grace, like you said, and allowing ourselves to make that mess and be a little messy in the beginning of things and knowing that it's not going to all work out and we might spill something, so to speak, metaphorically speaking. And it's
yeah,
okay.
yeah,
It's okay. So
absolutely.
freaking
In fact,
what, right?
and I think it's more than okay. It's actually, again, mess can be fun if we allow ourselves to have that sense. Not mess doesn't necessarily have to be all tidied up straight away. And again, like this is metaphorical, but like life is messy sometimes, and we
Yes.
don't necessarily have to have everything neat and tidy to be able to exist. Mess is part of life, and
Yes.
it's okay. And we can relax into that mess. Sometimes we need to, sometimes mess can't be cleaned up immediately, and we need to be okay with that.
Right.
Um, and so mess can be liberating and fun too.
It can be. It really can be. And it took me a while to get there. I was told I have a spiritual mentor right now, and he talked to me about mm, a month or so ago in one of our conversations, and he says, "You're so rigid." And I thought, well, I'm not as rigid as I used to be, for sure,
Yeah, okay.
but in a
Yeah.
lot of ways. And since then, I've just started allowing myself to notice areas of my life where that rigidity exists and just allowing myself to let that soften,
Soften.
that it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be
Powerful.
so all the time, and it's okay.
Yeah.
Really, at the end of the day, no one's really noticing it but me. I'm the one putting all the pressure
Absolutely. And then
around it.
you're doing the work. And the thing is that rigidity developed, Dee, to keep you safe.
Hmm.
That's why it existed initially,
Right.
to keep you safe. Yeah. And
Yes.
so it's now when you are no longer needing to have that level of protection that you can now afford to let that soften.
Yeah. And it really feels nice. It really feels nice.
Yeah.
So giving yourself permission to just look at those things and notice and just allow instead of trying to force things together all the time. It's
Yeah,
liberating.
and the reward is in the noticing,
Mhm.
and again, it's that, it's progress. It's like, "Oh, look at me," and that feel good I've achieved. Yeah, yeah, and all of that. It's such good awareness to have, and again, like, we're all a work in progress forever until the moment we take our last breath.
Yeah. How do you encourage women in the second half of their life to celebrate themselves? Because I know that celebrating ourselves is a really, really important component of growing
Oh, so
ourselves. So,
important. So important. I think it's always about, um, when I say always, I really encourage women to make note of the smallest steps and celebrate them. Like, make sure that we notice and celebrate even little things, because that gets us into the habit of celebrating progress and celebrating achievement, even if it is something incredibly tiny, like, oh, mm, I think I was listening to your last episode of podcast. I think the most recent one, and it was talking about taking a moment outside when you think you're so busy you can't get out into nature. Well, just take a step out of your front door and take 5 breaths. Something like that. So
yes.
celebrating that that's something that you did, and that's something that will pay dividends in terms of your overall sense of wellness on that particular day, and it took you literally 3.5 minutes or 5 minutes. So I think just really noticing, getting really good at noticing when you are making progress, or you are, yeah, making. I think it's always about the progress. Yeah.
Yeah.
And encouraging women to celebrate, and it can simply be a yay, it can be
Yeah.
a journaling entry, it can be ring and share it with a girlfriend. Hey, I did this today and I'm feeling so proud of myself.
Yeah.
'Cause that's just, it doesn't have to be taking yourself out for, a mani pedi, but that's always a lovely celebration and reward and self-care all wrapped up into one. So you can
Yes.
definitely do that as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm celebrating myself with a massage and some Reiki this week. So I am so excited about that.
Oh, yeah, love a good Reiki and massage. Yes, that sounds wonderful. See?
Yes. I'm so excited about it. It's going to be
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah,
So, are there any
yeah.
last tidbits you have for us today before we close this out?
Well, I think that always just one of the things that can come up for women in their kind of, 40s and over is a sense or feeling that I've left my run too late.
Mm.
or, that sense of running out of time. It's too late now to make changes. And I really, probably something would have liked to have chatted a bit about, but as an ending message, I would just say, I started my business, Breathe and Blossom, at the age of 49.
Yeah.
So please, it's never too late. And
Yeah.
when I did that, I Googled examples of, incredibly successful businesses that were begun after the owner or founder was in their 50s, and there was so much evidence. McDonald's is one that springs
Yeah.
immediately to mind, but there were heaps. All right, so please, everyone, if you ever have that feeling, or you wanting or feeling the pull to make a change in your life, please know that it's not too late.
Yes. I agree with you 100% because like I said, I'm 54 and I've just started really just started my business. I just changed the name of it and my offerings have changed. The whole entire thing
Yep.
is different. So, yeah, and I don't feel like it's too late at all. And one of the fun things I like to say is it's not too late until you hit the dirt. As long as you're drawing
Yep.
breath, you can write a book, you can, like start a new business, you can start doing yoga, you can change your diet. If you still are alive, it is not too late. It's not.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's
So
not. That's right.
that's
Exactly.
a
And
powerful message.
I'm loving the whole sense of freshness in all of the things that you're doing, Dee. So I will keep my eyes peeled. I'm very excited for you.
Thank you. It's just beginning. It is just beginning. My spiritual mentor keeps telling me you're right there. Don't stop. You're right there. And I'm like, "Oh, I'm not stopping. Don't worry." So and it's wonderful. When you find that thing that is so in alignment with you. And I think that's the thing. It can't be just some random thing because you're not going to be able to make yourself do it if it's just some random thing that's not aligned with you.
Mm.
But when
Yeah.
you allow yourself to find that thing, and it really is about allowing, when
Yeah.
you allow that to come into your awareness and you find that thing, all of these synchronicities start happening, and all of these, like, the divine information is just like, I feel like it's just pouring into me right now. It's incredible. But if I had had that mindset that, oh, I'm 54, and I'm starting a new business. What am I thinking? I can't do this. Who am I to think I can start this? That's something you do when you're 25. That's horse pucky. The only
Yeah.
person who
Yeah.
gets to tell you that and have it make real meaning to you is you, you know? We're,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, but it is a common mindset
it is.
challenge, and obviously you've done all of the work for yourself. So I just, again, encourage all of your listeners, if they're ever feeling the pull, to just to know and trust that it's never too late to do
Yeah.
something new. Even if you've started something which you thought was your everything, and this is what I'm going to do for the rest of, if you suddenly go, this is no longer feeling right, or it doesn't light me up or excite me anymore, well, how can you pivot? Where are you feeling your pull? I mean, you
Yeah.
don't have to go, oh, I'm stuck now. No, you're never stuck. You're never stuck.
Yeah.
You're only stuck if you believe you're stuck.
That's right. And consequently, speaking straight to that, I've had so many different careers in my life. It would make most people dizzy to have done all of the things that I've done, from selling shoes to nursing to doing construction work. I mean, seriously, I've done
Yeah,
so many different things. And
yeah,
now
yeah,
I'm
right.
stepping into this whole new world that's all spiritual, and I am loving it. I am absolutely
Yeah.
loving it. I'm having the time of my life. It's so much fun. So if you think it's over and you're 50, like, it's
It's
not.
it's not. It's
It's just
not.
beginning. Let yourself
Just
have fun
just
with
the
it. Yeah,
beginning. For sure.
it's
Amazing.
fantastic. So, Becky, tell everyone where they can find you today if they'd love to have you for their coach.
Yeah, okay. So Instagram is probably the best place. So that is Breathe and Blossom, and I'm sure you'll link that Dee in the show notes, will you? Yep. So Breathe and Blossom, I hang out there a bit on Insta, and I also have my own Facebook group, which I'd love you to come and join if that you're feeling the call to do that, and you're a woman or a woman rather in that kind of second half of your life, and you're looking for tips, tricks, and inspiration in terms of wellness in the second half of your life. I'm on Facebook in the Breathe and Blossom Women's Health and Wellness group.
Awesome. Awesome. And it just came to me, and I want to throw this out there just real quick. And I will link all of your stuff in the description box below the video. But what I would like to say is don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to reach out and ask for the advice because we get so hung. I know I was like that person totally. Like I felt like if I can't do this on my own, then I really don't deserve to do it. That's kind of was my
Yeah,
attitude, but I didn't want to reach out. So
yeah,
reach out. We need each other. We need each other. And
yeah,
us women, most of us are going to support each other until the cows come home. If you
yeah,
just connect. So yeah, go
absolutely.
join Becky's group. And, if you feel like you need some extra help, connect with her and get some coaching through it because you are worthy. You deserve it. Your life is just
Yeah,
beginning. Just beginning. Now
amazing.
the fun can really
It's
happen. Your kids are out of the house. I mean, what are we? I mean, seriously.
so true. So true. Yeah, thank you.
Right. So thank you, Becky, for coming on today. I really appreciate you and what you do. And I think this was a really fun conversation today. And I know that it is going to really help so many women who have been really looking for a conversation like this so that they can allow themselves to
Yeah.
embrace the second half. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity because it's obviously something I'm passionate about speaking all about, and so I really do appreciate the opportunity. Thank Dee.
You're very welcome. And thank you everyone for listening. As always, I love every single one of you. I appreciate you listening to these podcasts. Please like, share, and subscribe. And look for the notes, the description in the description box for all of Becky's information. And I love you all. We'll see you on the next one.